Hello, everybody, and welcome back to That Pretentious Book Club.
Welcome, friends. How's it going?
I thought you were going to say friends, enemies, acquaintances, countrymen. Yeah, that's what it was. That over there is your host, Kendall Shaw, aka Dr. Spoons Palermo.
Hello, hi, howdy, bonjour.
Ooh, I like that.
And over there is oh my god. I forgot what I say. Okay, over there is Asha Work, but you can call her Wheezy.
It ain't easy being Wheezy, and I don't have any like little French sauce to add to mine like you did to yours, but just imagine it. Some caramelized onions like you would have with your French dip sandwich. That's French, right?
Well,
Delicious.
your French accent is way better than mine, so
thank you. What is that? Merci? Is that what they say? That's my good. Merci.
mercy.
Mercy. Mercy.
Mercy.
If you guys don't like nonsense, can't imagine that you would find our podcast first off, because that tends to be what we're here for. But if you don't want our nonsense, you guys can use the skip codes in our notes, and you can just go jump to where we talk about the book and only the book and nothing but the book. But otherwise, hopefully you're going to enjoy the nonsense. I feel like I've set up my camera weird. So if you're watching the video, I'm like a floating head. I'm trying to fix it. My neck has never looked so long. There we go. Anyways, Spoons, my dear, my waifu, how has your week been?
It's been pretty good. Well, okay. That's a lie. But I'm rocking and rolling. It's been a week of highs and lows. Highs and lows. It really has. But right now I'm on a high. I went roller skating today.
Oh,
that was fun.
I miss roller skating with you.
I know, me too. We got to go again.
I agree.
And then I also, two of my dearest friends were in town, and we had a sleepover yesterday, and that was great.
Fun. That is great.
And we went to Chili's, and it was awesome. And I ate so much food at Chili's. And then we also watched two rom-coms in a row, two iconic rom-coms, When Harry Met Sally and You've Got Mail. So it was a great time.
Those are like iconic of the same level. That's funny.
I know, they're like the two best rom-coms we have as a society. So
nice.
That was fun. And then this morning we went on a walk, and we got donuts, and it was a great time.
Heck yeah.
So yeah, and I got to read one of my fave books. So it was those things were good about this week.
Well, that's good. I'm glad there were still some good things in your week to pull you through.
Yeah.
I've already forgotten this entire week. I know that it rained, and I was so happy.
That was fun. I did like that too.
Yeah. We finally got rain. Let's see, over here. Well, today has not been rain. Today has been it was really foggy this morning, and then it got really hot, and fingers crossed the forecast says it's going to rain for the rest of the week, and I really hope that it does, because it was wonderful, and I always feel so peaceful when it's raining. So
yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that it just comes back. But let's see, today we got the home gym set up like in the garage, because Javi's been like collecting different pieces for it. And so we put it all together today in there, even though the garage is still kind of messed up. Like it's still pretty full of junk, but it's a little bit more organized, and now we've got like some workout equipment, so that's cool.
Nice.
And then I drew up a little diagram of how we're going to make the chicken run, so the chickens can get out of the coop some but not get eaten by predators. So that's exciting. I just have to basically go measure and then get the materials that we need, and it'll be, I think, pretty easy. So knock on wood, now that I've said that, I'm going to curse myself in like a week when I'm trying to put it all together, but it should be relatively easy. And then we got Little Caesars today, and I usually get the cheese bread because I prefer cheese bread to pizza, but they gave us crazy bread instead.
Yeah.
And it was like the most glorious mistake that's ever been made. I ate the entire bag of crazy bread by myself, dipped in the garlic butter, and then I passed out. Like my stomach is still just full of crazy bread.
Oh, good. I'm so glad.
So good. Yesterday I was like, I gotta start eating healthy, gotta start working out, but then Little Caesars was like, you haven't met crazy bread yet.
Yeah.
Oh.
Where the eating healthy starts tomorrow,
Yeah, it has
today was
to,
crazy bread
because
day.
today's crazy bread. And also you said something about donuts. So you guys got donuts.
Uh-huh.
And I have been like, my brain space has just been obsessed with this idea of making my own like homemade custard filled donuts. I don't know
Ooh.
why. I love custard. I don't get custard very often. I love like custard stuffed pastries. I just think they're like decadent and I feel so fancy, but I've never actually tried to make them before. And Pinterest, it's like it knows what's in my head because it keeps showing me these videos of people making homemade like donuts and then people stuff them with custard. And I'm like, okay, it's everywhere. It's a sign.
Yeah.
As I was, of course, I'm trying to get back into eating healthy, which I've probably been saying for months on this pod. That's what I've been trying to do. It's an ongoing, constant process.
Listen, it's a battle every day, it
is.
really is. Never ends.
Yeah, I do like really good for like 4 or 5 days in a row. And then I do pretty bad for like 4 or 5 days in a row.
Right.
So I'm hoping that level of commitment just kind of maintains me. Like I can be satisfied with that.
Yeah, like it'll just even out that way.
I hope so. I'm also trying to actually am trying to like exercise more too. So because I was doing really well with all of like these like big farm chores that we had going on, but then we got all the big ones out of the way. So for the last few weeks, I've like just not been exercising at all. And I've been like, yeah, it's perfectly fine.
You have lots of farm chores to do,
Yes,
it's
exactly.
fine.
However, none of them are like core stuff. Like I used to do like squats and sit-ups every single day. Now, no longer. But I did like 3 minutes of wall sits yesterday. So
Oh yeah.
I feel like that was sufficient for probably another couple weeks before I feel bad enough again to exercise.
Yeah, I think that totally counts.
I think it counts
for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much been my week, I guess. Tomorrow's Sunday. It's also been like a really chill week. Like my work hasn't been too much pressure this week or anything. So I've been taking naps on my lunch break still, which is nice now that I've gotten into the habit of letting myself take naps. So it's been nice. So like that plus the rain, I'm ready for fall. Like I know I've been saying that for months, but now I'm like, okay, but everyone else is on the same page. Now everyone else is posting about fall. Everyone else is talking about fall. And so I'm like, okay, I think it's safe to say fall is going to be here at least in name in like a month.
It's
so
coming.
Now I can really start pining for it.
Oh, I'm already there as well. I just keep thinking about it and like imagining things, and I'm so excited. Like I have like all these outfit ideas I want to sew.
I know. Oh my God. See, I have, not that I should be spending any money at all and haven't in a while on clothes, but like, dude, I just have been like on ThreadUp, just like saving, adding to wish list all these beautiful fall clothes because fall fashion is superior to every other season of fashion.
It really is. Like it's undeniable.
It is, like, to the point like I didn't even like try to like get any new like summer pieces this year. I was like, I don't care, I'll wear whatever I only care about looking cute in the fall.
Summer, I love summer, but it is when everyone kind of looks the worst, I think, generally.
It is. Well,
but
also in Texas
winter,
it feels like you just sweat. Like in winter it's just layers, right? But in summer here everyone just sweats. So I feel like a lot of us like don't put as much effort into like hair and makeup and clothes because what's the point? Like,
what is the point? You're going to sweat right through it anyway.
Exactly. And it's been so humid like this week here, particularly. Like we'll go outside and it's been like lower temperature because it's been raining. Like it was like 80, but we said like with humidity feels like 98 or something. And I was like, oh, and that's like minimum. But so the humidity is just so high. I'm like, I don't want to hear anyone complain and say like Florida's humidity is so bad. I'm like, Central Texas humidity is also a force to be
I'm sure
with.
Florida humidity is also terrible though, to be honest.
It is, but I've been there in August and I'm like, well, it's humid, but like, is it more humid than our days have been? I feel like it's kind of on the same level. Like it's I'm sure different days are worse, but like as an average, I feel like we probably average about the same.
It certainly feels that way.
I definitely felt that way.
When I was in Houston last weekend, and as soon as I stepped out of the car, I was like, oh my God, this is
I have to leave Houston.
Like, I can't even imagine living in Houston.
I can't either.
Can you?
No, absolutely not. And both of my siblings have talked about moving to Houston. I'm like,
why?
So what you're saying is that you want to drip with sweat and water.
it's like you're drowning outside.
Yes,
Like
it's like you're
in the
drowning in the air.
yes,
But it's like a wet, hot drowning too.
yes. You feel suffocated. It
It's
is
like you're drowning
insane.
in a hot tub. It's
Yes.
disgusting.
Shout out to all my Houston girlies. Like, I don't know how you do it.
I don't either. I don't either. Ooh, I got to interview some people for work this week. So that was new.
Oh.
And one of them was in Houston too. And I had the same thought where I was like, you're so cool. Why do you live in Houston? I mean, no shade to Houston. I have family in Houston. It's just that, I don't like y'all's weather is worse. I'm complaining about our humidity here, but like, it's not this humid all the time.
Right.
Like Houston is humid all
The time.
I don't know
It
how you
really
guys do
feels
that.
like I literally went outside for 2 minutes to go get my something that I left in the car. And when I came back, I was like, do I need to take a shower? And I'd only went outside for 2 minutes. It was insane.
Yeah.
Oh, I have another thing about Houston. On my way in, okay, you know how there's like insane billboards in Houston? There always are. They had like this one.
Well, but I believe you. I
there,
haven't been to Houston that much.
okay, every time I'm down there, I go a lot lately. I think it's because a lot of friends I have live there now.
Mhm.
But every time I'm down there, I see another billboard that I'm like, okay, what is going on? But there's this like one dentist like that they always put up the most ridiculous billboards, and these actually make me mad, but this other thing that I'm going to say in a minute makes me very happy. But the dentists are so annoying because like their whole thing is like, we make sexy teeth, and they all wear like these fancy like outfits and like pose sexily, and I'm like, okay, we get it, everyone who works at your dentist place is hot. Like,
oh my gosh, they're using sex appeal to get people into the dentist
are
office.
literally using sex appeal to get people to go to the dentist. And I'm like, listen, this is having the opposite effect on me. Like, I would never go see you guys ever.
Yeah.
It's very, very funny. Not that like,
not.
no, I get it. Sex sells, like, sure. But the fact that it's for a dentist thing, like, no, we're not doing it.
You never feel more unsexy than when they stick the freaking thing in your mouth and try and talk to you and you're speaking. You don't, there's nothing that you do in life that's ever unsexier.
Sexy about the dentist. Okay. Like, stop trying to make being a dentist cool. We all know you're lame. It makes me so mad.
I'm sorry, but it's true. I mean, the dentist office might be the least sexual place on the planet.
Seriously. Every time I'm at the dentist, I just want to leave. Like, and that makes 100%. Me wonder, like, what it's like to actually go to the dentist there, because I'm like, are they carrying it on like when you arrive? Like, they're like, hello, we're so glad you made it in today. Like, are they all sexy when they talk to you? Because that would be kind of funny, actually. But my other Houston billboard thing that I have is this time when I was driving in, I became advertising completely worked on me because there was this one billboard I saw, and it was for a law firm, and I think it's like a defense attorney.
Is it the 444 guy?
No. This
444 4444
444. No, this was for Push and Win, and this is Push PUSCH and Win NGUYEN.
Nice.
You know, like that spelling of it. And so and so and I was like, push and win, and up top it said like, we push and you win, and I was like, oh, excellent. And then I kept driving, and then there was another one where on one side of the highway it said we push, and it had who I'm presuming is Push going like this, and on the other side of the highway it was win, and it was like, and you win. And I was like, oh my God, this is like so immersive. Like, we push, you win. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the vision. I'm feeling it. It's a pun. They look like nice guys. So I was like, I don't even need a defense attorney, but my brain was immediately like, well, I know who I'm going to call. I'm calling Push and Win. And then I got to Emily's house, and I was like, with my friend I was visiting, and I was like, okay, have you heard of Push and Win? And she was like, oh, I love them.
My God, advertisers take notes. See, sex appeal actually turns a lot of us off, but a good pun that will stick with us.
Well, sex appeal for a dentist, absolutely a no-go for me. But Push and Win, there's something sexy about them, I have to say, you know.
Push and Win, contact us. We'd be happy to do a commercial for you. Apparently,
Push and Win.
we're obsessed with you.
I'm obsessed. I love you. I'm gonna send you a picture after you see
I'm
how
excited.
good this advertising is. Like, man,
It sounds like really top tier advertising. Like, I don't know who's in charge of their marketing department, but they should be making the big bucks.
I know. And as soon as they realized that their names worked like that, they were like, oh my God, this is everything. We have to make this our whole thing.
That's actually why they partnered together. They actually don't like each other that much, but their marketing department was like, but you guys, I mean, the marketing potential, you have to make this work.
Are you seeing the vision? They're like, all right, for you, Push, I'll do it.
For you, Win.
This will benefit us both.
Oh, so good.
Oh my
God. I love that.
Yeah.
That just made my whole week now. That was delightful. I just had one where I was like, have I not felt like a single like entertaining thing? Have I not had like a single entertaining thought this entire week? Because that really entertained me.
I'm so glad. Oh no. That's not
I've just
ideal.
been a sleepy week, man. I just want to like be asleep this week. Not even in like a sad way, just in like my brain is like, this week should be a week off to just like drink hot tea and nap. Mm-hmm. And I've been drinking a lot of hot tea again. So I'm enjoying that.
Hot tea really hits the spot sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
Even when it's hot outside, you're like, okay, but I need hot tea.
Yeah, it was out there. We were sweating, and it was the second time that I was sweating for the day because I went out and did the morning chores. And then I was like, you know what? While I'm out here, I should just go ahead and move around the rest of the hay that my brother left in the orchard that I was supposed to like spread out. And so I was like, it'll probably take me 10 minutes, like cut to an hour and 15 minutes later. And I'm dripping with sweat, and I could not possibly smell worse because I smell like sweat and also somehow fog and also like mildewing hay. And it was disgusting. And so then I come back in and rinse off. And then Javi's like, all right, ready to go put together all the gym equipment out in the garage in the heat. I just came in from, and I was like, oh my God, fine. And so we went, and I was so naive. Because it was still pretty cool in the day when I went outside. I sweat because I worked for an hour and 15 minutes, like tossing hay around with the pitchfork. So it was like a lot of manual labor. I thought just putting some equipment together, I'm not going to like get really gross. But also this was a couple hours later, the sun was up. So it was much hotter in the garage where there was no breeze. And so I took my hot tea out there with me, and I was like, I'm dying. And then Javi was like, why don't you stop drinking hot tea? And I was like, I can't. That's not an option for me. I do have to keep drinking this.
You're like, so what you need to understand is that this is a staple, and this is baseline. We're having hot tea.
And then I tried to get him to try it, and then I was like, let's go get make us go get limeades, because like on a really hot day, for some reason, it's just like a good limeade, and just plain limeade is my like go-to for like if I've been like working outside, because it's just so refreshing. So I convinced him to take me to get a limeade, and then but on the way, I was still finishing my tea. And so I was like, you have to try it. And he's like, I don't want to try it. And I was like, no, you have to try. Here's the thing you guys have to know about me if we ever meet in person. If I'm drinking tea and I offer you tea and you say no, you're still going to drink the tea. Like, I'm not going to give up until you drink the tea. We are having tea. If I offer you a cuppa, you're having a freaking cuppa. Like, there's no way around this. And this isn't etiquette. This is sincerely me pushing my belief that tea is the best beverage for you into your life. And I will not take no for an answer. And if you say no, I will sit there and I will pout. I mean, I will pout and cry and gripe and fling my arms around like a middle schooler until you actually drink the tea, which is what I did today to get Javi to drink it. And it worked.
You're like, you don't want to have tea with me?
Yeah.
I was like sobbing.
No, that's exactly right. And then he was like, no, I don't want any tea right now. And so then I was like flinging my arms around in a tantrum in the car until he was like, oh my God, fine. And took like the tiniest sip of tea ever, but I still felt triumphant. So that's the thing, guys. You just take a sip. Just make this easier on all of us. Just take a sip.
Take a sip, babes. Tea is a social like drink. You know what I mean? That's the reason we have tea parties. Like when you have tea, you're like, oh, I need to share this tea.
Exactly.
That must be it.
Yeah. So guys, just let me love you. I'm trying to love you. And here's the other thing you need to know. I probably have over 100 different types of tea. If you don't like the tea I'm offering you, I promise you I can find you a tea that you will like.
You do have a lot of tea.
So much tea. I have a whole drawer full, and then I also have like an entire cabinet full to the back of tea. So when Caleb came over, he was like, do you have any tea? And I was like, I pointed to the drawer because just this the first spot I was thinking of, and he was like, oh, cool. And I was like, wait. And then I went and I got on the stool and I opened the cabinet and was like, also all of this. And he's like, I'm just going to get something out of this drawer. And I was like, okay, suit yourself. We can try the rest of these later.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I have tea cabinet as well. We literally call it tea cabinet. So
I love that. I like how you often take away article adjectives from things. You don't use them. And honestly, it makes me so happy. You're like, what if I just don't use a, an, or the anymore? Or what if I just say this is not the tea cabinet or a tea cabinet? This is tea cabinet, and it makes it like personified, and to me like that makes me so happy. Yeah, exactly. I like the way that you personify very basic like objects and places.
I have, okay, this is kind of like Anne Shirley core of me, but I realized that even to this day, I will kind of like personify things in my head. And like the other day what was I doing? I was literally like moving something around like at work, like I was moving these little like candle molds that we have. And I was like, oh, but I have to move this one so it can be next to this one because they're friends. And like that was like a genuine thought in my head. And then I was like, they're made of metal. Like, what is going on? Like I had to remind myself that they're not friends. They don't have feelings. They're inanimate objects. And then I was so
cute. That is hysterical.
It's like kind of embarrassing to realize that I still have these thoughts all the time.
That is Anne Shirley core.
It kind of is. Marilla would like yell at me.
She'd be like, that is the most foolish thing I've ever heard.
Yes. Which foolish girl.
Exactly. Which brings us to our book for this episode, which is Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery.
Baby, look how cute my book is.
I was going to show you my book's really cute too. Here, you look. If you guys want to see our video for our episodes, you guys can go check out our Patreon. That's where all the videos are. But
I like yours better. Oh, it's so
yours is really pretty too. Well, I realized I basically spoiled myself and I bought this nice one because I realized too late that I didn't have time to order it from Thrift Books because I thought that I had ordered books like later into the season and I hadn't. And so last week I was suddenly like, oh my God, I have to order all the books for the end of the show, like for the end of the season 4, or else I'm not going to have them. And so I ordered that one off Amazon, and Amazon doesn't like always have like the nicest ones, at least that, I mean, I'm sure they probably are all on there, but like a lot of the options are just not as pretty. I usually find them on Bookshop, but that takes longer. But guys, do shop at bookshop.org because it's awesome and you can support local bookstores. And also you can actually, I think at the bottom of all of our episodes in the description, you can actually follow a link that takes you to like our little like listing in bookshop.org. So you can actually like buy the books that we read on the pod, which is cool. I didn't know
you set that up. That's so cute. I did.
It's very cool. I think it's bookshop.org/Story Siren Studio because that's our production company. I think that's what it is.
That's cute.
I don't know for sure, but it's at the bottom. It's in the show notes. But it's adorable.
Let me show you this other thing I have. It's the Anne of Green Gables journal, and it's just like space where you can write in it, and it has pictures and quotes in it, but I haven't written anything in it because it's too pretty.
It's too pretty. Yeah.
My thoughts are not good enough to go into a book that is filled with Anne of Green Gables quotes.
That is adorable.
Like, okay, not sure what I'll ever do with this, but it is pretty.
It is pretty. So can we just say Anne Shirley real quick is the poster child of cottage-core long before cottage-core was a thing?
She is. She's extremely cottage-core.
Yeah, she is. So
like she's all flower crowns, like cute little boots. Like when you said I was moving the hay around in the orchard, I was like, okay, Anne Shirley core, like
Yeah, except that I was so gross and disgusting. But Anne Shirley would have been adorable about it. And she would have been like making up stories.
Yeah.
And I was just like, God, I'm hungry. I can't wait to go eat something.
I think that you did way better though. Anne would have forgot what she was doing halfway through and like left and picked flowers or something. Like
Yeah, that's
you actually
quite
did it.
possible.
You are like the work, like you actually do the work for cottage-core, and like messes everything up and just
Yeah, but she's so
imagines.
much happier, you know, like she's just lived such a happy life.
She really does. Like it all works out. Okay, well, we'll talk about it in a minute, but
Yeah, exactly. So I would call this a book wreck from Kendall herself because she's been wrecking it for a hot minute now. And I had dubious feelings about it, largely just because whenever anyone's too enthusiastic about something, I'm like immediately suspicious.
like you must be wrong, actually.
I don't know if that's possible. I think I'm also like, is it going to live up to the hype? So I mean, we'll talk about it. I will leave you in suspense for now because I know it's killing you to know what I thought about it.
I think I have an idea, so I'm just kind of like waiting for that shoe to drop, but you know.
Okay. Well, so first, before we get into the summary of the book, let you guys tell you a little bit about, did I say, let me guys tell you?
Let me guys tell you a little bit.
I would love me guys to tell you, and then I could just sit here and listen, but instead, I'm going to, Ash, me Wheezy is going to tell you about this author. Didn't I say I just woke up from a nap? Never been more obvious. Okay, I got all this information from the Canadian Encyclopedia because, by the way, which I did not realize at first, this book is Canadian and the author is Canadian. I don't know how I never got that. Like, Anne of Green Gables is like still a household name.
Yeah, and like it's like super Canadian. Like it's there. Is Anne Shirley like Canada's Superman? I think so. They're so obsessed with her.
That's adorable. What else does Canada have? Famous figures wise. I am here to insult the Canadians today. If I've offended you, I did it on purpose. You're welcome. I don't
really know. Like, unfortunately, I know almost nothing about Canada.
This is the thing. Canada's real mysterious. Actually, I had some friends who were from Canada. Hi, Canadian friends, by the way, if you're ever listening to this. But I am going to tease you guys for your most famous country, like your most famous figure from your country that's known around the world. I do feel like is Anne of Green Gables.
Oh, it absolutely is. Like, but you know what? Who better? Like, they have someone nice representing them. I think that's nice. You know?
Yeah, let's not even talk about the people who've come out of Germany that the world first comes to mind. Like, I think Canada's doing all right.
Sucks. You know, it's hard to like get out of like the shadow of somebody bad, even if you have a lot of good people.
I know. I think about that a lot because sometimes I'll be like, you know what? I feel so bad for Germany for that reason. I used to think that a lot growing up. Lately, I've been like, you know what? I feel really bad for America because like,
see, that's what I'm saying. Like,
we can't get away from it. And I'm like, please do not view us, the people, as represented by these people that everyone knows us for, but we do not approve of. Actually, none of us actually like. We were given options of the worst and the worst. So just like,
there are a lot of nice Americans, you guys, and there are lots of nice Germans. Probably. And you know what? I bet there are a lot of mean Canadians. So everyone's the same no matter where you live.
I want to know. I want some actual stories of meeting some mean Canadians because I still only get stories of really nice Canadians. There's just no way a whole country of people
there
is nice.
Is no way. Some of y'all have to be mean.
They're like, but our national figurehead is Anne Shirley. How could we not?
They're like, oh, sorry. All right. Shut up. Start saying it correctly.
Oh, God. It's good. Okay. So the author of Anne of Green Gables, L.M. Montgomery, aka Lucy Maud Montgomery, was born on the 30th of November in 1874 in Clifton, which is now called New London in Canada, making her a
Sagittarius.
That is correct. This is so good. I like how you like are learning the zodiac signs, like to recognize them, and I'm just making no effort whatsoever to do that.
You're always like, and Kendall will tell you they are.
Exactly. Let's see. So apparently Montgomery's ancestors were among the wealthy and educated immigrants who came and settled on St. John's Island, which is now called Prince Edward Island. They came over from Scotland in the 1770s. So her family's kind of like old money type feel, kind of like the people who say, oh, well, my ancestors came over on the Mayflower. It kind of feels like that vibe.
Oh, like that. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's the vibe. You guys, Canada, correct me if I'm wrong. You might be too nice to do that though. So Montgomery's mother, Clara Woolner McNeil, unfortunately died from tuberculosis when she was only 23 years old. And Montgomery she wasn't even 2 yet. So that was pretty crushing. And it really influenced her later in life. Later in life, she basically was quoted saying multiple times that she felt like motherhood was the most important job. And most people think that's because of her, unfortunately, losing her mother so early on and really missing her influence in her life. Apparently, her earliest memory was of seeing her mother in her coffin. And that's what she wrote in her autobiography, which was published in 1917. So
that sucks.
it definitely does suck. Yeah. Ellen Montgomery's life was not easy. It was not the easiest life. It wasn't the worst, but it had a lot of really significant hardships in it as well. So especially in her childhood, I feel like, and then in her like semi later adulthood. So her childhood was spent with her maternal grandparents in Cavendish, Prince Edward's Island. Her father, Hugh John Montgomery, moved to now Saskatchewan area in 1887. And at that point, she went with him. But then she didn't really like it there. She kind of felt like she didn't belong in the family, and she didn't really get along with his new wife very well. And so she went back home to Prince Edward's Island to the McNeil homestead in 1891. And this is where I was like, ooh, I wonder if this is, what influenced her kind of, Anne of Green Gables type setting, like her going to live with these two elderly people who are really sweet, but apparently not, because apparently her grandparents showed her little affection, which is very sad. And her childhood, she felt very lonely and isolated. And that's why she got into reading and writing, was to, kind of escape by using her imagination. But she did not feel that she had a happy childhood, which is very sad. She started writing poetry and keeping journals when she was 9 years old. And then she started writing short stories as a teenager. And her first ones were published in a local newspaper. And then sold to some magazines through North America. There was something I was going to say about that. Oh well, I don't know. No, I don't know what it was. Oh well, now I have to make a note to go remember that I've forgotten everything. So her first publication was a poem called On Cape Leforce, which was printed in the Charlottetown Patriot in 1890, just a few days before her 16th birthday, which is very cute.
Good for her.
Yeah, when she first started writing, she used pseudonyms, including Maud Cavendish and Joyce Cavendish. But then she finally settled on using L.M. Montgomery because she wanted to hide her gender. Which of course, because which reminded me, this was like in 1890 and she was published in the early 1900s. I will say that for this book, for sure, I was shocked to find out that Anne of Green Gables was written in like the early 1900s, because it reads as like a much more modern book. Like it's
extremely easy to read.
Very easy to read. I would not have guessed it was written at this time period. So in 1894, she completed a teacher's training course in Charlottetown, and she graduated from a program that was supposed to be 2 years, but she actually graduated in 1 year with honors because she was a smarty pants.
Okay. Anne Shirley Core.
Exactly. Very Anne Shirley Core. So she studied English literature at the Halifax Ladies College, but she did not finish the degree for financial reasons. And this was also around the same time that she started to get paid for her writing. So that's pretty cool. And after this, she started teaching in like village schools, like as a career. So let's see. Her grandfather died in 1898, at which point she returned to Cavendish to live with her grandmother. And then in 1901 through 1902, she worked as a proofreader, which is, kind of fun. And she wrote a weekly society column under the alias Cynthia. And other than that, from 1898 to 1911, she stayed in Cavendish and wrote a lot of poems and stories that got published, and worked in the local post office, which was run by the McNeils from their homestead. Isn't that wild? Like, where do you live? Oh, I live at the post office.
Yeah, that is kind of weird.
Very strange. So her romantic life was very interesting. She had like a lot of romances. Lucy. She had, I know, I was like, what is happening? When she was a teenager, she declined a marriage proposal from a boy named Nate Lockhart. When she was, I know, very good. When she was doing her post-secondary studies, one of her teachers was courting her, John A. Mustard. which I don't know the age
Okay.
difference there. So I don't know if that's
Yeah.
creepy or not. I do think that teachers trying to court students is not a good power dynamic, though.
I think bad, probably. And he doesn't
probably
have
not
as good of a
good.
name as Nate.
Nate
So,
Lockhart. No, not at all. Then she was also courted by a boy named Will Pritchard, who was the brother of her friend Laura Pritchard.
oh,
And they didn't end up together, but they did stay really close friends until he passed away in 1897 from influenza. So
oh, dang it. That influenza comes for everyone, doesn't it?
it really does. It really does seem to. That and tuberculosis gets
Yeah. Oh,
everyone.
true. So true.
Yeah. So also in 1897, she became secretly engaged to Edwin Simpson, and you're gonna hate this. He was a distant cousin.
No.
Yes. Yep. Who was studying to become a Baptist minister. But apparently Lucy was not against cousin lovers. Here we go
Stop.
again with the cousin
No.
lovers.
God, do we even have one author from the 19th century that we can count on? Even one?
No, they were all like, cousin lovers is perfectly fine. I don't know what you're making a fuss about. Everyone else.
God, Lucy.
Yep. But don't worry. They did not get married because within a year she became, quote, embroiled in a passionate romance, end quote, with a farmer from Prince Edward's Island named Herman Lurd. Lurd.
Okay.
Not a good name.
Okay. But
yeah.
a passionate romance. Wow.
Passionate romance. Yeah. Let's see. And that's also when she broke off her engagement with her cousin, which apparently her family was disappointed by.
Yeah,
you know, we really like to keep those bloodlines close.
No.
What a disappointment she was to her family. Although we're proud of you, Lucy, for doing that. Thank you for not marrying your cousin. Let's see. In 1899, shortly after she'd returned to live with her grandmother, Lurd, remember, so the one she was embroiled in a passionate romance with, he also died from influenza.
Oh,
so that was pretty sad.
That sucks.
I know. And that was in 1899. So that kind of was the end of her like romantic, stuff for a little while until like 1906. So she had been secretly engaged since late 1906 to a Presbyterian minister named Ewan MacDonald. And she married him in 1911, right after her grandmother passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they honeymooned in Scotland and England, which is fun. Let's see. And then they moved. So this is I wonder if this kind of impacted the way that she wrote the Anne of Green Gables. Like all of the good stuff happened at Green Gables, and then like everywhere else the world was a little less forgiving. I don't know, because pretty much after they left Prince Edward Island, life got harder, and it hadn't been like all roses up until now for her anyways. But they left Prince Edward Island after being married, and they started living in Ontario, and that's because that was where Ewan was assigned to parish. And then they had their first son Chester, who was born in 1912, who was apparently later, I think this is the one I want to say, who was kind of a dick later on and pretty cruel even to his mom. Let's see. Their second son, Hugh, was stillborn in 1914. So that was sad. And then their third son, Stuart, was born in 1915. And that's where they stayed until 1926, when they moved to the small village of Norval. And then in 1935, they moved to Toronto, and they lived in a house near the Humber River, which she called, quote, Journey's End. That's what she named it. So, which is like, is that sweet and hopeful, or is it dark and ominous? I don't know.
Oh, Lucy.
I feel like Lucy would be like dark and ominous and sad, and Anne Shirley would be like happy. So I feel like she was a little at war with herself on this. Let me see. Let's see. So she felt a little bit, not a little bit, she seemed like to feel extremely stressed and with a lot of pressure on her life between being a minister's wife and being a mother and being a writer. She seemed to have a hard time balancing all of those things. So I'm like, yeah, girl, the best of us. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah. And then apparently the whole situation was made worse because her husband, Ewan, his mental health was increasingly unstable until he was admitted to a sanatorium in 1934 and resigned from his parish in 1935. So that's pretty crushing, especially because she herself was suffering from mental illness. And that's so that also was an extra challenge on top of trying to be a mom and be a writer. And now she's responsible for everything because her husband's in a sanitarium. And that's basically when she started really holding to the idea that she believed motherhood was the most important work for women. And she completed her first novel, which was Anne of Green Gables, in 1905. She credits Little Women and Alice in Wonderland and a story in a Montgomery newspaper about an English couple who had tried to adopt a boy but were sent a girl. These were kind of her inspirations for Anne of Green Gables.
Wait, so that really happened?
That really happened to to a couple, to an English couple. Yeah. So the manuscript was actually rejected by a lot of publishers, and so
screw them.
I know. So she gave it up. She put it away, apparently in a hat box, until 1907 when she tried again, and she secured a publishing deal with L.C. Page in Boston. The book was released in 1908 and sold more than 19,000 copies in its first 5 months. And it was reprinted. It's a lot.
Okay.
I think then it was a lot. It was also reprinted 10 times in its first year. So that for sure is a lot.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was garnered widespread acclaim right away. It got a lot of endorsements, including from Mark Twain, who really liked it. He loved the character Anne Shirley. He thought she was just delightful.
Of course he would. She is the kind of character he would like, I think.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, Mark Twain is kind of cottage-core, but for boys. Like, that's kind of the vibe.
Well, I also think that he would, because Mark likes to, I think he delights in ridiculous things a little bit.
He does. 100%.
And Anne is so ridiculous. Like, I think he would like that.
I totally agree. Sorry, I guess I can really hear my ice shaking around in my cup. Let's see. So her contract with the publisher L.C. Page in Boston required her to make 2 more sequels to Anne of Green Gables, including Anne of Avonlea and Anne of the Island. And then she wrote 4 more books on her contract with him. Some of them had to do with Anne of Green Gables. And then in 1920, she did not renew her contract with him, but he still went ahead and published a collection of short stories that he had in his possession. And so then she was basically just like dealing with lawsuits, like with suing him over and over again for the next few years. So that was also not peaceful. That was also a stressor in her life. And at that time, Page held the rights to her first 6 books, including Anne of Green Gables. So that's unfortunate. At this point in time, she shifted to Canadian publishers, McClelland and Stewart, and American publishers, Frederick Stokes. That was 1917. Oh, and I said a few years. It was more like a decade of legal battles over the royalties and rights to her stuff from Page. So, yeah, I know. But during that period where she had these other publishers that she'd contracted with, she wrote 5 more Anne books and her best-selling Emily trilogy. So, which I have not read, but I think sounds adorable. So by the time that she had passed away, she published 20 novels and 2 books of short stories, as well as 1 book of poetry.
Wow.
Yeah, as well as that autobiography I mentioned, not to mention all the poems, stories, and articles that she wrote for magazines throughout her life, which is what she started with, and she continued to do. So a lot of that stuff was also published after her death. So Anne of Green Gables specifically has been adapted dozens of times, translated into more than 36 languages. That's all of her stuff has been adapted dozens of times and translated into more than 36 languages. Anne of Green Gables alone has been adapted more than 24 times, including twice as a Hollywood feature. There was a silent film in 1919, which I did not know.
That's really early.
It is really early, and a talkie in 1934, and then twice as a BBC miniseries. It was also adapted into a musical for CBC TV, and then a second production aired in 1958 of that. So that was 1956, 1958 as a musical. And then it was expanded into a full-length musical for the Charlottetown Festival, apparently.
Oh, cute. In Charlottetown?
Yeah, very cute.
Wait, imagine going to that.
I know. It sounds super sweet. And apparently it has at Charlottetown's Confederation Center of the Arts, it's played there every year since. So,
oh, bless their hearts.
Yeah, it's very so sweet. But apparently the best known adaptation of Anne of Green Gables is Kevin Sullivan's 1985 CBC TV miniseries, which I'm guessing is the one that you love.
Dear favorite. Oh, I know. So good. There's also like an anime. Japan apparently loves Anne of Green Gables.
That makes sense. That's not surprising to me.
I feel like Japan gets behind cottage-core too.
Japan was cottage-core long before cottage-core was like a term.
Yeah, I think they love it. Yeah,
they definitely love cottage-core. That's adorable. I would love to watch the anime. Mm-hmm. So our author passed away in Toronto in 1942, just before the first Canadian edition of Anne of Green Gables was published. So was published in America first, it sounds like. Her body was transported by train back to Prince Edward Island. See, again, adding to my hypothesis that she liked that place better than all the other places.
Yes.
And so her ceremony was held at what had then become Prince Edward Island National Park. And the homestead in Cavendish that Montgomery said was a model for Matthew and Marilla Cuthbert's farm in the first novel. So
I want to go there.
I know. It's very sweet.
Imagine going there.
It sounds magical. Like I would love to see it after all the descriptions that we have.
Right.
The Green Gables.
She makes it sound like the best place in the world, Prince Edward Island. Like
she does. Let's see. In 2008, on the 100th anniversary of the publication of Anne of Green Gables, this gets interesting. There's some controversy about how she passed away. So this is
What?
So this is interesting. So in 2008, Montgomery's granddaughter, Kate McDonald Butler, told Globe and Mail that her family believed that Montgomery's death had not been due to heart failure as was originally disclosed, but they believe that it was a suicide by drug overdose.
Oh, yeah. Wait, I thought you meant murder. Oh, that's sad.
I know, it's sad. Murder would almost have been better, not because
I wish it had been that.
Just because it's a different type of sadness.
It's a different type of sadness.
It's easier because you can be mad at somebody instead of just being heartbroken for someone multiple times over. So apparently her father was Montgomery's youngest son, Stuart, who I like to think of as the good son, who had found a note by his mother's bedside asking for, quote, forgiveness. So the note had been kept secret within the family ever since then. And she said that the reason that the family decided to come forward with the news was because they wanted to help lift some of the stigma surrounding mental illness so that people would go get help.
Yeah.
And so she had said that Montgomery, like her husband Ewan, had also suffered from severe depression and was especially isolated and struggled even much harder after Ewan's condition became worse. So that's unfortunate.
That's so sad.
Yeah. However,
by the way, I don't mean I wish that she had gotten murdered. I just meant that that's sad. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Just making sure everyone understands.
I don't think anyone thought that.
Okay.
However, there is a professor named Mary Rubio who is a leading authority on Montgomery and her work, who offers a kind of different opinion. She thinks that the note, which was written on the back of a royalty statement dated 2 days before Montgomery's death, might not really be a suicide note. She thinks it could be the last page of a journal entry because Rubio co-edited Montgomery's multi-volume journals published between 1985 and 2004. She thinks that the number 176 written at the top of the note indicates that it was page 176 in a handwritten journal, which Montgomery would have intended to transcribe by typewriter because that was kind of how that was her custom. That's how she worked. So she argued that the missing 175 pages, which have still never been found, might have been taken by Montgomery's eldest son, Chester MacDonald, the ne'er-do-well, who apparently he lived in the Montgomery's basement and was very dependent on them and was very cruel and even to his mom, and of course made her mental health much worse.
Oh my God.
So we don't like Chester at all. But the Professor Mary Rubio also conceded that Montgomery was definitely suffering from really intense psychological pain, and that she had, on top of her depression, developed a dependency on barbiturates. So that's very unfortunate. And that she had told a friend a month before her death that she, quote, had doubts she would still be there in a week, end quote. So that's sad.
This is so sad. I did not know this was going to be this sad.
Yeah. I was like, because I saw some article titled Lucy Maud Montgomery's secret drug issue or something. And she did have an addiction to barbiturates, which I believe she was taking to try and manage her mental health. But of course, it was making it worse because she was addicted to them. So in the professor's biography, Lucy Maud Montgomery, The Gift of Wings, which was published in 2008, the professor wrote that Maud's, quote, Maud's comment tips the evidence in the direction of a premeditated death by someone who was in the grip of a major depressive episode and may or may not have understood that she was dependent on drugs that were killing her, end quote. So all that to say, all of that really came out because the Lucy Maud Montgomery's family wanted people to be aware that there is help out there, and please go get help if you are struggling. And there's literally no shame in admitting that you're struggling, and it doesn't make you abnormal. Everybody is struggling with stuff, and some people's depression is much worse than others, and it all deserves attention. So that's
So true.
Nobody be afraid to speak out about that. There's plenty of people who want to help and want you to speak out.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's the pretty wild, I felt like, life of Lucy Maud Montgomery.
Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah.
Wow,
And the
good
Canadian
job.
Encyclopedia really brought it as far as details go. Like, I did not have to hunt down details. They were just like, we got you. And I didn't even do all of the stuff from the encyclopedia, just the highlights.
Well, maybe she's like Canada's Mark Twain, you know, like he's our guy. They're like, he's our girl. We've got all the deets, you know?
Exactly. I think that's exactly what it was.
Wow, that was good.
Yeah, thank you. Well, so now we're going to get into the summary, which Spoons is going to give us.
I love talking about it. This is going to be happier than that was. Not that it wasn't informative and I enjoyed hearing it, but it was a little sad. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay. So Anne of Green Gables. Basically, how this begins is we have this kind of older brother and sister named Matthew and Marilla, and their last name is Cuthbert, and they live at Green Gables.
I thought they were married for a long time.
I
just missed the brother and sister thing until like the end, and I was like, what?
Oh no. Yeah, they're not. They are brother and sister.
Whoops.
So yeah, they live at in this house called Green Gables, and it's in Avonlea on Prince Edward Island. And Avonlea is like a small town.
A beautiful name.
It is one of the best place names I've ever heard in my life. Avonlea.
Yes.
Avonlea. Like incredible.
It is.
And so Matthew and Marilla are, you know, kind of getting a little older. They're like, you know, like 60 about. And so Matthew, you know, does like all the farm chores and stuff, and they're like, maybe we should, this is kind of weird, but I guess it was an accepted thing. They're like, maybe we should adopt a little orphan boy and he can help Matthew with the chores, and then we can, you know, raise him up proper and all that. So they're like, okay, great idea. And so they decide to do it, and Matthew goes to collect their little orphan boy who they sent word for at the train station, but it's not a little orphan boy, it's a little orphan girl. Her name is Anne Shirley. She is very skinny, she has red hair, and she is absolutely wild. By that I mean she is extremely imaginative. She talks nonstop. She has such a galaxy brain, honestly.
She does. She is galaxy brains. No one has ever been more galaxy brain than Anne Shirley.
It's so true. And we love her, but she is crazy, you know, it's like she's wild. Whenever Emily and I watch the miniseries, we always joke about like, we should play a drinking game where we just drink every time Anne makes you want to drink. Which is like everything she says.
Such a good idea. That's hysterical. You get just sloshed so fast.
We
America turning her into a drinking game. Thank you, Canada.
I mean, honestly, like, I love her to death, but you spend 5 minutes with her and you're exhausted, you know, like,
yeah, it is that vibe. Yeah, absolutely.
You're like, oh God, I need a drink. So anyway, but so Anne is extremely excited because our poor girl has had a really rough life so far. She's 11 years old at this point, and her parents both died when she was a baby. She never met them. She's basically grown up in like orphanages and like people's houses who just, you know, make her work for them basically.
Yeah.
And like bring up their kids for them. And she's had a really rough time of it. And so, and also because she has this huge personality, like it's also not a great time for kids with huge personalities, because adults are always like, children should be seen and not heard, that kind of thing, you know? And so they're always like, shut up, Anne.
Yep.
And she doesn't really belong to anyone. She's never really had a home. Like, it's very sad.
Yeah.
But so, you know, so she ended up back at this orphanage. And then the orphanage was like, okay, well, we'll send Anne. So she's super excited because she's basically like, I'm being adopted. Like, this is awesome. And when she like arrives in Prince Edward Island, of course, and is like, oh, this is the best place in the world. So Matthew is like, okay, well, I don't know how to tell her that we wanted a boy. This was a
mistake. Oh my
God.
Matthew
is extremely shy. So
and he's terrified of women, especially little girls. Like is just like chill to the bone. Like
Yes,
he has
like,
no idea how to talk to them.
has no idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is such a sweet man. I love Matthew.
He is.
He's a sweetheart. And so he's like, well, also, I mean, even if I could tell her I'm not going to just leave this little girl here, so I guess I'll take her home with me. And so he and Anne go home, and like the whole ride home, Anne is just talking nonstop. She's like talking about all the stuff they're seeing and kind of like, this is the most beautiful place I've ever been in my life and all of this. And Matthew is just like really getting like kind of taken with her because she's so funny and like sweet and makes him think about things. So anyway, it's a great
and
scene.
he doesn't have to do any of the talking. There's no expectation for him to even reply.
So true, which is why they're such a great pair.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I did not know this was possible. This is the ideal scenario.
Yes. So they get home, and Marilla Cuthbert, she is much stricter than Matthew, very she's very practical. She's all business pretty much. And
not
so
touchy-feely at all.
Not touchy-feely, no. She's a nice woman, but she's very like, practical. And so she's like, what the heck's going on? Like, we wanted a little boy. And poor Anne is just devastated, of course. Like, this would be so terrible. Imagine this.
It's awful. I was like, can you not have this conversation not in front of her, please?
I know. Like, it's terrible. And you know what? Like, even I love Matthew and Marilla, but like even Marilla is kind of horrible to this orphan. Like, why are people so horrible to orphans?
I don't get it.
Old books. Like,
I don't know.
It's like, it's not their fault.
It's the thing that you said about children. This was like long before people cared about children. Everyone was like, children are the worst. So obnoxious.
They're like,
children have no rights. Yeah.
Absolutely no rights, basically.
Literally none.
So everyone just feels very comfortable talking bad about Anne in front of her. So anyway.
And to her. Like,
and to her.
These people are so rude.
Poor Anne.
I just can't believe that Canadians are all nice after this. Okay.
You're like, I saw how they treated Anne Shirley. So actually,
I'm not fooled, Canada.
And so Anne is of course so sad, but Marilla's like, okay, like it's fine, like we'll just go sort it out tomorrow, like we'll take care of you tonight, that kind of thing. But Anne is like, oh please let me stay, all of that. And so anyway, they get through the night, blah blah blah. The next day, Marilla is going to like go back to the lady she requested the child from with Anne to kind of like sort it out. But by this point, even Marilla's kind of like liking Anne.
You can't not like Anne.
No, I mean, she's extremely likable.
She is,
And so they're going, and also Anne told her like her whole tragic backstory and stuff. And so Marilla's like, okay, this sucks. Like, I don't feel good about giving this child back to this orphanage. No. And so they arrive, and she's changed her mind at this point. And she's like, okay, maybe we'll let her stay. And so, they basically are like, okay, you can stay with us in Green Gables. It's fine. We'll just get somebody else to help Matthew, and you can help me, and that kind of thing. And so Anne is overjoyed. Like, this is, of course, the best thing that's ever happened to her. And you're just so happy for her reading this, right? Like, ugh.
She is such like a grateful little kid, and just a person growing up. Like, she's just constantly like talking about like how happy she is about stuff and thankful for stuff and grateful for stuff. And I'm like she really embodies that thing. Like, the first thing you should do when you wake up in the morning is say thanks for something. Yeah. Like, she really embodies that, but it's who she is, which is, I'm just like, that's why you can't not love Anne. Even if you're like, well, she talks a lot and she's a little hyperactive. Like, you can't not love her. She's so just pure.
She's a wonderful person, and I love it because she grew up with nothing, so she appreciates everything,
exactly.
Like, she finds so much joy in like little things that other people overlook, like, oh, what a beautiful vase of flowers, like, oh, I love this tree, I'm gonna name it, that kind of thing. Which is so like so cute,
very cute, also very Kendall of her.
No,
this is tea cabinet.
This is tea cabinet. Well, see, Anne would say that's not a very romantical name, and she'd come up with something better.
No, she wouldn't. But no, when nobody comes up with any romantical names anymore at all, I think tea cabinet is pretty good. I think you have some Anne Shirley energy, some major Anne Shirley energy.
I think we, it's good. I try to embody a little Anne Shirley. Not too much, though. She's a lot. But
she's a lot, yeah.
But yeah, she's great. So anyway, And there's a lot, basically this book is a lot of like little things that happen while Anne is growing up. So I'm not going to say everything that happens. I'm
Very
just kind of
slice
going to
of
hit on like,
lifey.
it is. I'm going to hit on like the main things, I guess.
Yeah.
So basically Anne ends up meeting Diana Barry, who is kind of the neighbor girl. And
her bosom friend.
Yes, Anne has always wanted a bosom friend. So
Side
like
note,
a bestie.
my husband hates the word bosom. Apparently he thinks it's disgusting. And so one of my favorite things to do is go, come here, babe, come lay your head on my bosom. And he's like, that's disgusting. Stop saying that to me. Like he's so upset by it.
That's disgusting.
I'm so confused. I think bosom is kind of a funny word we don't use very much anymore, but I just was like, what is disgusting about this? Like I've heard the language you use and you think bosom's disgusting. Anyways, Diana is her bosom friend.
It's really funny.
Made me snicker.
Yeah, it's a funny phrase. Like we would never say it now, but it's funny.
You're my bosom friend, waifu.
I guess we are bosom friends. Like
we are bosom
love
friends.
This for us.
I like it. Let's bring back bosom friends.
It's nice to have a bosom friend. Everyone should have one.
We need a t-shirt that says bosom just straight over the boobs. It'll be say bosom on one boob and then friends on the other. And then you can wear one and I can wear one.
That would be so funny. Like just a little treat for the Anne of Green Gables fans.
Exactly.
Oh God, I love it. If I saw a person wearing that, I would freak out.
That'd be adorable. And on the back, it can have like the arrows that point to the other person's shirt, and it can say like I'm Anne, or she's Anne, she's Diana, or something cute like that. She's Anne with an E. She's Diana.
Yes. Oh, they are the sweetest friends. I mean, like, and it's very funny to me because Diana is more of a passive personality, really. Like, and so Anne and Diana meet, and like Anne is immediately like, "Will you be my bosom friend?" Basically, and Diana's like, "Sure." Yeah. So they, and Diana's so beautiful, and she has raven black hair, and she's very fashionable. Her family seems a little more well off, and yeah, Diana's just very nice, very sweet. And so she and Anne become friends like immediately, and Anne just drops her into all of her like imaginings, and they like come up with all sorts of things. Like they rename stuff together and like have
they're so good at that. Anne is so good at that.
Anne is great at coming up with names. And so that Diana's her bosom friend. And then there's like this whole little part which I hate, where Marilla thinks that Anne lost her like amethyst brooch, but she didn't, but she thinks she did, and Anne confesses to it because Marilla's like, you are not allowed to go to the church picnic until you
so
confess.
Excited about.
Yes, and she's been so excited because there's going to be ice cream there, and like everyone's going to be there, and it's like she's never had a fun party like this before.
Yeah.
And so Anne, in her little Anne brain, she's like, okay, if I confess, she'll let me go. And so she comes up with the best confession she can make up. And of course Marilla is like, how could you do this to me? Like, you are definitely not going to the thing now.
Picnic. Yeah.
And so poor Anne is like devastated, of course. But then Marilla ends up finding the brooch and realizes that Anne didn't lose it. And so she's like, why would you do that? And Anne is like, well, you told me to confess and then I could go. So Marilla and Anne kind of have to have like a understanding of like each other. Like, okay, this is what's going on. Yeah. And Marilla feels bad about it, of course. And so anyway, Anne has a great time at the picnic. Then Anne gets another little misadventure from the beginning is Rachel Lynde is like their other next door neighbor basically, and she is a character. She's
opens kind of the book by being a snoop. Like she's basically, for some reason, she's the one that we start the book in, like in her perspective.
Yes, she spies Matthew going across the road, like, and she's like, what is Matthew Cuthbert doing at this time of day going to Carmody or whatever? Yeah. And she's like, this is not like him. And so then that's when Marilla tells her that they're getting Anne, but or an orphan boy. But yeah, she's such a snoop. And so basically, and she's so like she's one of those people who's like, what, I'm just being blunt, but really they just mean they like to be rude, and they pretend like it's a nice thing about their personality. Yep. She's one of those people. And so she when she first meets Anne, the like first words out of her mouth are, oh, she's such an ugly skinny little thing, basically, and like, look at that hair. Yeah. And Anne is so self-conscious about her red hair,
Yes.
because it's like apparently a very bad thing to have red hair. And
apparently
so
she's like, she just thinks it's hideous. And I'm
she's
like,
like,
girl, you've been blessed. And she's
I know.
cannot. Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, wait, red hair. Wow, cool. But you know, I
Yeah.
guess back then it was very ugly.
Mm.
And so she's like so upset about this. And Anne has a temper as well. And so she's
Yes.
like, how would you like me to tell you that you're fat and ugly, basically?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so she gets in trouble for that, of course. But Marilla is also kind of like, okay, Rachel, you shouldn't have teased her about her hair, like, which
Yeah.
is sweet because already Matthew and Marilla are like taking her side and things.
It's very sweet.
And so this is sort of another thing where she like basically is like, I'm never apologizing. I could never do that. Like she's very dramatic all the time.
She
and
is.
So Matthew's like, can you just apologize a little bit because I miss you downstairs and you're not allowed to leave your room until you apologize. And so she's like, okay, for you, Matthew, I do it. She considers Matthew a kindred spirit. And Anne is very big on kindred spirits,
yes,
which is so cute. And so she decides she's going to make it the best apology of all time. So she gets very dramatic about it. And of course, Rachel Lynde thinks like, oh, wow. But Marilla's like, oh, God, she made it into something fun. This is supposed to be a punishment. So she ends up apologizing. And then there's kind of like, you know, a little bit of an antagonistic friendship between Anne and Rachel, I would say. Like, they, you know, whatever. And they get along after
yes
that,
they do,
which is sweet. But
Rachel starts to like her more and more. Like she definitely she starts to like her more. It's just she's
Anne
just
grows on everybody
woman.
Eventually.
Yes.
So then we get, I'm just gonna skip, Anne starts going to school, and she, you know, likes going to school. She ends up she gets to be pretty popular, I guess, with the kids at school. Like they like her. And there is a boy at school named Gilbert Blythe, who is one of my all-time
favorite
like
crushes.
I have such a, oh my God, he's the cutest boy in the whole world.
He's such a Kendall crush.
He's
barely in this book.
Listen, when you watch the miniseries, the miniseries fleshes him out entirely. Okay. And I think we talked about this last time, but when they're watching it in New Girl, whenever Cece's like, listen, I love Schmidt. You know I love Schmidt, but I would throw it all away for Gilbert. I would ruin my life for that boy.
I've always laughed at that.
I have never related to something more. That is the feeling you get when you watch Gilbert.
I know. She was one, and then Jess was saying, she's like why are Gilbert's lips so sexual? I was like, what?
He is the perfect boy. Like the thing about Gilbert is he's extremely kind. He's very generous, but he's got a mischievous little streak in him. Like he's kind of, you know, he's like a sweetheart boy, but he can play. Like he's not like so angelic that he doesn't know how to tease you or like have fun. You know what I mean?
Not at all. In fact, that's how he makes an enemy of Anne for the majority of the book.
Exactly. So this was not a great moment for our boy Gilbert, but it's funny. It's a funny way to introduce the character, I think, because like later on you're like, oh my God. So anyway, Gilbert, and I have to say the boy that plays Gilbert in the new series, well, it's over now, but Anne with an E, is the cutest boy in the entire world. Like he is so sweet in that. When you watch that, you're just immediately like, okay, Gilbert Blythe is the best boy who ever lived. Like the Anne with an E Gilbert and miniseries Gilbert are slightly different in that Anne with an E Gilbert has genuinely never done anything wrong in his life ever, and he's the nicest, sweetest, kindest boy you'll ever meet in your life. Miniseries Gilbert, you know, you mess around, you find out. Like he gets it. But they're both good boys. Anyway, it's just very funny.
Oh my God, they're definitely both Kendall boys.
They're like anybody boys. Like
this is also your time period. I'm realizing everything about this is very much Spoons' thing.
This is everything to me. Okay, like oh my gosh,
I feel like I understand you so much better now that I've read this book.
Oh wow, okay, that's making me nervous because I feel like you didn't love it.
No, it was a really good book. I liked it very much.
Okay.
I can totally see this book's influence on you in all of like the sweet, beautiful ways. No in negative ways. No sarcasm here.
I'm glad. Thank you. I will say this. I didn't read this book until like I was in college, and I only read it because I started watching Anne with an E, and then I had seen the mini series. So I will admit this is not a childhood book for me, although I wish it had been.
Yeah.
But that's why I feel weird sometimes saying I have a crush on Gilbert, but it's that I know young Kendall would have had a crush on Gilbert.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, when you watch the miniseries, he gets older, so it's okay.
Yeah, and you'd have a crush on older Gilbert. We all know. Listen, we all know. Nobody's saying that it's okay to have a crush on children. Nobody actually has a crush on children.
Yeah.
None of it works.
But he's a crushworthy boy, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
In case anyone was worried.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm not creepy. So
listen, we're not into cousin lovers. We're not into weirdly having crushes on like 15-year-old boys. That's just not our thing. It's a different podcast.
We're not into.
Yeah,
we get it.
Add those to the list.
So sorry, my cats are sleeping in front of me and they look so cute.
Oh, babies.
They're like sleepy girls. But okay, sorry, I spent too much time talking about Gilbert, but I feel it was necessary. Anyway, so you're like, it was not, but okay. So moving on.
No. I was just like, the fact that Kendall would say, I feel like it was necessary. I was like, that's exactly, it's just so Kendall of you to say that. It's also I did not realize, shout out to our listener girlfriend, Catherine. She is like an AGG hardcore like fan. Like she went to like this convention with other hardcore Anne of Green Gables fans. And so the fact that you said that, I was like, I feel like there's a whole community of people who would agree with you wholeheartedly. And like she was saying that she thought she was a really hardcore fan, and then she went to this convention and she said that like people would like hardcore shame you if you didn't have like the right AGG opinion. And I was like,
oh
whoa.
my God. I want to go to this convention, but also I know they'd put me to shame and they'd hate me. But like I want to be one of them.
I know. Bad. That's exactly what Catherine said. You guys are so funny.
Like, I've seen the miniseries a bunch of times, and they're like, "Okay, Anne, get in line. Everyone has."
Yeah, they'd be like, "Have you seen the silent movie version?"
I know. Sorry, I'll just leave. Yeah. Okay. So to Gilbert. So basically, Gilbert is like the cutest boy in school, and he's like 2 years older than Anne and Diana. So they're like 11. He's like 13, I guess. And so, but he kind of immediately has a little crush on Anne. Like it's very obvious. He thinks like there's something about Anne, and so he does that thing where he like is mean to her to get her attention, basically. And so he can't get her attention, and so he pulls on her hair, her red hair, and calls her carrots. Yeah, which is mean. And Anne, but
it's also the thing Anne is the absolute most sensitive about.
He could not have picked a worse thing to do to get her attention.
No,
like absolutely, this was the worst thing he could have possibly done. And so Anne, furious, turns around and cracks her blackboard over his head and screams at him in front of everybody in the class.
Yes.
And
I like this. I enjoyed this.
It is so iconic. I mean, this is like the scene, And so Anne, of course, gets in trouble, and Gil tries to be like, "Oh, it was my fault," but whatever. Anne gets in trouble, and she vows to always hate Gilbert Blythe from now on.
Yeah, and she really holds to that until like the last 2 pages.
Yeah, boy, oh boy, does our Anne mean it. Like she knows exactly what she's about. And so yeah, it's bad. So anyway, she hates Gilbert Blythe now, even though he's the cutest boy in school and everybody likes him. She's like, he's the worst boy I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, she's like, don't even talk to me about him. Don't even say his name to me.
Yeah, she completely ignores him, doesn't want to talk about him ever. And this is just so funny. Anyway,
except that she decides she's going to compete with him. Like in her head, she like kind of secretly competes with him for like best grade in the class. Always from here on out. Like he doesn't even know, but like she considers him her ultimate rival.
Yes, and it's because they're both the smartest kids in class, and so they always get the best grades. And she's like, I cannot lose to Gilbert Blythe because I hate him.
Yep.
And so yeah, it's great. And so then we have trying to think of another big thing that happens. I'll just get to this one. So Anne and Diana are gonna have a tea party, and Marilla is like being nice to Anne, and she's like, okay, you can like use this and this. I'm gonna be out for the afternoon. You can invite Diana over, and I'll let you, have some of the nice food we have, and you can have raspberry cordial. And Anne's like, all right, this is going to be the best thing ever, because this is a very fun thing to do, to have a tea party with your bestie. And so Diana comes over, and they're very funny and like proper about it, because they're kind of like acting like they're grown-up women. It's very cute. And so she Anne goes and gets the raspberry cordial. Is not in the place where Marilla tells her it's going to be. It's like farther up in the back of the pantry, and she's like, oh, okay, this must be it. And so she gives Diana this raspberry cordial, and Diana has like 4 glasses of it, and she's like, this doesn't taste like any raspberry cordial I've ever had. It's so good. And then she starts feeling really, really sick, and she's like, I gotta go home. Turns out it was not raspberry cordial. It was currant wine that Marilla had made. And Diana is drunk.
This was so, I was so stressed for Anne. I was like, oh no.
It's so bad, but it's like really funny at the same time.
It is.
Like really anyone with a sense of humor could see that it's funny. Like, after
and
like
it was
the
an
initial
accident.
Shock. Yes, a complete accident. And but Mrs. Barry does not see it that way, and she thinks, of course, because Anne is like this scrawny little orphan girl, that Anne must have done it on purpose, and now Diana's not allowed to play with Anne anymore, which is so sad, because like Diana is like everything to Anne at this point, her bosom friend. And so it's very, very sad, and Marilla is even mad about it, and she's like, that Mrs. Barry is the worst and all this. So anyway, very sad. So for like a couple of months, Anne and Diana like do not speak, because Mrs. Barry would get so mad. But then Minnie May, Diana's little sister, there's like this part where people like most of the adults go off to like this political convention thing, and Diana runs over in the snow and is like, and you've got to help, Minnie May's got croup. Is that what it is? And she like, we don't know what to do and all this, but Anne, because she has like raised so many children basically for all these people that she stayed with, knows exactly what to do. So she goes over and saves Minnie May's life before the doctor can get there, basically. Like she is the reason she's not dead. Which is so cool. I love this for Anne. So then of course Mrs. Barry is like, oh, I'm so sorry, like you're actually a good person, I see that now, blah blah blah, thanks for saving my daughter's life. So good for Anne, she did it. Now she has her bosom friend back, and then they get to go to like this Christmas ball thing together, and like that's really fun. So great for them. And then I think this is the part when they are really excited, because that Mrs. Barry is gonna let them like go to this party, then come back home and stay in the spare room, which is a very fun thing for Anne for some reason. I
still don't know why.
I don't know.
But she's very excited.
Get it. The sparest of spare rooms later, Miss Josephine says. So anyway, they are really excited, but then when they get home, Diana's Aunt Josephine has come over, and they accidentally jump on her because she's staying in the spare room.
And they didn't look, and they didn't know she was in there.
And so they get in a lot of trouble, and Aunt Josephine is like, those terrible children, blah blah blah, and she's such a stick in the mud. But then you find out that she's actually maybe a kindred spirit after all, because Anne goes to talk to her and explain basically what happened, and she kind of like wins her over, and then you find out Aunt Josephine can hang, she can be fun
and
too.
she just loves Anne again. Everybody loves Anne, especially like the old, like these like elderly kind of stick in the mud people who are like, I don't believe in fun or children, and then they're like, but that Anne girl, send her over here to talk to me, I like her.
She's so entertaining.
It's exactly because she's entertaining.
So then Aunt Josephine ends up being like really nice, and like she'll send Anne presents for Christmas and all this, and she like talks to her all the time. So that's a fun connection to have. Then I'm trying to think of any like the other big things that happen in the middle.
There's a puff sleeve dress.
Oh, the puff sleeves. Okay, so Anne has been basically Marilla keeps Anne in these very boring, very dull outfits because that's the practical thing to do. But Anne is so like such a dreamer and, you know, very romantical and all this. And so she would absolutely die to have a pretty dress like all the
Yeah.
other girls wear. But Marilla says no.
Nope.
So Anne's always in these ugly dresses. But Matthew, bless his heart, loves Anne and spoils her all the time. Like he wants to spoil her. But Marilla has been in charge of her
Upbringing. Yeah.
upbringing. Yeah. And so he kind of doesn't get a lot of a say, but Christmas is coming up and he realizes, oh, Anne doesn't have pretty things like the other girls. So he just gets it in his head. He's going to get Anne a dress with puff sleeves, which is what she keeps talking about.
Yeah. It's so sweet.
And it's very sweet. So he has like the worst time though, going to get this dress because he is so anxious.
He
all
can't
the time.
talk to women.
So he goes to this like store where he thinks that this guy that he knows will be like running the store, but instead it's this like new shop lady. And so he like absolutely loses it and he doesn't know what to do. And
he buys 20 pounds of brown sugar and leaves.
It's so embarrassing. But then he ends up getting help from Rachel and she helps and they get Anne this nice pretty dress with puff sleeves and lace and all of this. And it's like the best Christmas present Anne's ever had. And she's so happy and it's so sweet. And she's like kind of growing up and like she might be like 12 or 13 at this point. So I don't know, but good for her. So yeah, nice fun things like that. Trying to think, there's a part where they get a new teacher, Miss Stacy, and Anne loves Miss Stacy. She's like really cool and better than their old teacher who was creepy and weird.
He was so weird. I did not like that man at all.
No, I did not like him.
No.
But Miss Stacy's super nice and Anne immediately loves her. They also get like a new minister and Anne loves the minister's wife.
She's wonderful.
Wants to be just like
so sweet.
It's really sweet. And so there's all sorts of misadventures. Anne's always getting into scrapes basically. Just not really. Yeah, she's just always like her mind's wandering and she'll make mistakes.
Yeah, she falls off a roof and breaks her leg.
Oh yeah.
Because a girl dared her to walk because they were all daring each other as a game. I like the way they were like, and the game that was popular with the children at that point, because, you know, like as a kid, there you go through periods where like one game is really popular for some reason. And it was daring people was really popular. And so they were daring each other to like balance on stuff and like walk the fence post. And then one of the girls, Josie Pike, who is I just don't like her at all. She's just
Josie
awful.
Pye is like the one we don't like.
She is like the worst.
She's like the mean girl of Avonlea.
She is the mean girl of Avonlea. Ugh, she's so frustrating. But anyway, she dares Anne basically says like she could walk the roof pole or whatever. And then Josie's like, no one can do that. And Anne is like, well, I knew someone who could. And then Josie's like, well, then I dare you. And Anne's like, well, I've committed. And so she tries to and falls off the roof and breaks her leg.
Yep.
And then she's laid up for like a month or something. And she gets really close with the minister's wife who comes to visit her, which is sweet. But oh my goodness,
it's pretty funny. Like this is the kind of thing that happens to Anne all the time.
This is, and it was like there's this part in the book where Marilla says something like, I had suspected we were due for another scrape of yours because it had been a while and you'd been very good. And I just knew you were about to get into some kind of trouble. It had been too long.
Yes. I think that was when she dyes her hair, which is another one of her big mistakes. So she's still so self-conscious about her hair. But this like traveling peddler guy shows up and she buys this hair dye from him. And it's so funny the way she says it in the miniseries. She said, he's hoping it would dye it a beautiful raven black. She's like crying. But it doesn't, of course. It turns out like a hideous green.
It's disgusting.
And so her hair is like green and nasty. And Marilla is like, oh my God. So basically Anne can't go anywhere. And then they end up having to just cut it all off. So now Anne has short hair. It's really funny. But she's like, this will teach me never to be vain again.
Ridiculous.
Very funny. Then there's the part where they're doing like a dramatic reading of The Lily Maid or some, is that what it's called?
I don't know, something like that.
So Anne is basically having to pretend to be dead in this boat and they're just gonna like push her off and then like meet her at the end so they can like do the dramatic. Yeah. So anyway, it's a very funny thing. But then the boat gas brings a leak. And so she is stranded in the middle of the river on like this weird thing. And Gilbert is of course the one who comes by and is like, has to help her.
Yep. And she's like, I hate this situation so much, but I have no other option.
It's so
oh God.
And so then poor Gil, this whole time, like there's been little moments where he's trying to kind of get back into her good graces, like, but she will have none of it. And so he kind of like pays some special attention to her. Like he clearly has a huge crush on her. And I think part of it is because like she's the only one who doesn't give him the time of day.
She hates him. Like, she like hates him so much.
And he's like, oh my God, I'm in love with her.
What is that? Boys are so weird.
So he's like, Anne, can't we please be friends? Like, I'm really sorry. This was like 2 years ago, by the way, that he said the thing about her hair. And she's like refuses to budge.
For a second, she's like, that'd be nice. Then she's like, actually, no, I won't forgive you. I'm gonna die hating you. Absolutely not.
Yeah. And so then he's kind of like fed up and he's like, fine. And so he decides he's gonna hate her too. So then neither of them speak to each other at all. And they both are active parts of the rivalry, the academic rivalry.
Yes.
Which is a funny development, I think. So anyway.
It was, yeah.
The rest, they're all like, oh my God, Anne, we thought you were drowned. And she's like, no. And it's like very embarrassing. So that's Then basically Miss Stacy is like starting up. They're getting older and Anne is gonna like take the entrance exam for this like Queens College, which is basically like this program where you could like go to like be a teacher. And so like only like kind of like some of the kids in the class are going to do it, and Diana's not going to do it because her parents don't want her to go to college and all of this. But Matthew and Marilla have both been very supportive, and they're like, they want like the best for Anne all the time. And so Anne is like, how can we afford that? And they're like, listen, we're gonna do everything we can for you because we love you so much and all that, which is very, very sweet.
Yeah.
And so Anne is going to like this, the after school classes and stuff. And then they end up doing she goes and takes the entrance exam, and is this part where she and Gilbert tie for like,
yes, for the scholarship,
the highest score. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there's like two things. So like they tie for that. And
that's right. Yes, they
gets
do.
in basically. So that's good. So then they end up going to Queens. And there's this Avery scholarship thing, which is basically like whoever has like the highest like English grades, I guess, gets to go to like a longer program university type thing.
Yeah.
And so they're like, it's always like this thing of like, oh, who's gonna win it? And Anne is kind of like regretting being mean to Gilbert now. She's like, maybe we could have been friends. Like, I wish we had kind of been friends, because she's realizing like they have a lot in common. Like they're both really smart and like into the same things. Yeah,
somebody said something about how talking with Gilbert is like talking with Anne Shirley, and she just can't make any sense of it. And I was like, oh my God, they've wasted so much time.
I know. And at some point Gilbert says a thing about like, oh, maybe that was a while ago. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. You get the idea that Gilbert and Anne would be good friends, but she's kind of ruined it. So so she ends up getting the Avery scholarship, and he gets like the gold medal or whatever. So like they both do really well, and it's good for them.
Yeah.
But then she gets to go to her college, but then she goes home, and Matthew and Marilla are both kind of like in bad health now. Like they're getting older. Matthew's had some heart problems. Marilla has like, she can't see very well anymore, and it's giving her headaches.
Yeah.
And so then Matthew ends up dying, and it's really, really, really sad.
Yes,
and
it is.
It's like this thing where he has a heart attack and just dies. And so it's like Marilla and Anne are both like completely distraught, of course, like sweet Matthew. And so Anne decides like, I'm not going to go off to college. I'm going to stay here and like get a teaching job, and I'm going to help take care of Marilla, because Marilla is also can't see very well, and now Matthew's dead, and so Anne feels like
the doctor told Marilla that if she keeps like sewing and reading and doing stuff that strains her eyes, she's going to go blind like really soon. which is
So Anne feels
awful.
like she has to stay.
Yeah.
And so Anne decides to do that. But Gilbert has already been offered the teaching job at
Avonlea.
So she has to go she would have to go to Carmody to do it. So
Yeah.
anyway, it's like this whole thing. But then Gilbert gives up his spot in Avonlea so that she can take it and stay with Marilla. And now he's going to White Sands to board there and teach there,
It's
which
so
is
sweet.
so sweet.
It's so nice.
And so that's kind of where it ends.
Yeah.
And and it's like the nicest thing ever.
Yeah.
So then Anne and Marilla are gonna stay in Avonlea.
Yeah. And Anne and Gilbert basically have like a conversation where they're like, well, let's just be friends now and we can talk more. And they end up like talking at the gate for like half an hour. And Marilla's like, what could you have possibly been talking to Gilbert Blythe about for half an hour? And so it's like, yes, they're obviously going to get together in the future. It took them long enough.
I forgot to mention, because Marilla, the thing that kind of changes Anne's mind is that Marilla tells Anne that she used to have a thing with Gilbert's dad, which is like, what? When you find out. And so, but then she messed it up because she wouldn't forgive him for something. And then he ended up marrying somebody else. And now Marilla has been not with anybody her whole life. And so she basically tells Anne the story without really moralizing about it, but just kind of telling her. And Anne is like, oh, I can't do the same thing. Like, I can't make the same mistake. And so that's when she kind of decides to forgive Gilbert. And crazy.
It's wonderful. It's so good. I love it. That's Anne of Green Gables. It's a very, very, very good book.
Oh my God.
I know you wanted me to like it, and I did like it. So
it's okay if you just tell me your honest opinion. You don't.
No, I really did like it. Reading it, I said this before, I think on maybe the Scripturient Society, because Spoons guested on our sister podcast, the Scripturient Society for Writers. You guys should go check it out. But she guested on our 50th episode extravaganza, and I mentioned on there that reading this book like in book form for some reason was like hard for me, but the audiobook I just like soared right through, but still like retained most of it and really enjoyed it. So I just loved this in audiobook form, and it made me go, maybe I should watch the miniseries again. I think I've only seen parts of it, so
yes, we should do it. Can I watch it with you?
Yes, you can. Can I watch it with you? Of course you can. Yes, you can. We can do that, and then we could have like we could do it when the pumpkins are growing, and then we could have like our fall pumpkin photo shoot.
Yes.
Cottage-core in honor of Anne Shirley Core.
I love it. Anne Shirley Core.
Yes. Okay. Well, what were your favorite and least favorite parts of this book?
It's just like so hard because I love the whole book.
Yeah.
So favorites though, I don't know. There are some like iconic moments that I just love, but I think one of my favorites is when Anne gets her puff sleeve dress.
So good.
Yes. Oh, and I forgot to mention it, but I was really proud of her when she did her like recitation at the like White Sands like concert thing. And I'm just so proud of Anne, like all the times when she does something really good, and I'm like, good for you, honey.
I know,
like I love those parts. I don't know, I also love when Gil gives up his spot for her. That's so sweet. Least favorite parts, when Marilla thinks Anne stole the amethyst brooch, and then when Matthew dies. Those are my least favorite parts.
Yeah, that's fair. I think my favorite part, I love the way that Anne names everything. It makes me really happy. It makes me want to like name everything.
Yes.
So that's definitely a favorite part. I'm trying to think. There was, I love the boat leaking incident. That whole thing is hysterical to me.
It's really funny.
I think that might be my other favorite part. Least favorite part is when Matthew died, because it was so awful and tragic. That, and also at the very beginning where Marilla and Matthew in front of new orphan Anne are like, "You're not a boy, we can't keep you." And I was like, that's so cruel. So I think those are my two least favorite parts. What about favorite and least favorite characters?
I mean, favorite characters gotta be Anne. I mean, she's the main character. Least favorite character, I don't even know, like,
Josie Pye.
I guess Josie Pye, like, she's not the worst mean girl ever, but she's clearly like
she's
not
obnoxious,
really that nice to Anne. So it just depends on the day, I guess, whenever. Like, so maybe Josie, but oh no, I changed my mind. I don't like all of the adults who are mean to Anne. I don't like that lady who wanted to take Anne and was just like, well, yeah, I guess she's a hard worker.
Yeah.
And I'm like, screw you. She's a little girl.
Yeah, sorry, children are not laborers for hire.
Yeah, literally.
Without
so
pay,
furious.
so not even for hire.
And also, yeah, maybe that lady.
Yeah, as she came to mind as well. I think, yeah, favorite character Anne, but honorary mentions for Matthew and Marilla in very different ways. Like, they're just such wonderful characters.
Great characters.
Yeah. Least favorite character, Josie Pye, and the woman who tried to adopt Anne from Marilla, like you said. She was just, ugh. But also like all of like Anne's former people, but they weren't really in the book.
I forgot. Okay, I changed my mind. Josie Pye, you get a pass because maybe you'll grow out of it. But the teacher, Mr. Phillips.
Oh,
I hate Mr. Phillips.
Yeah, add him. He's garbage. Yeah. He's a garbage man. Very gross man.
He is.
And mean. He's gross and mean.
He's mean and he's like all into his student. Like, ew, gross.
All like hitting on his student.
Nasty. And he only got it because of nepotism. So he's not even a good teacher.
So wait, you said it. So that's so funny. Let's see what else. What did we learn from this book?
So many things. I think we learned
the extraordinary and the ordinary.
Yes, appreciate the things around you, you know.
Yeah.
And we learned you shouldn't be mean to orphans. It's not their fault. Okay.
Yeah, what the heck?
At least don't be mean to them children. Being an orphan. Like, find another personality flaw, you know.
Yeah, find another thing to be mean about. What the heck? Oh God.
I think we learned holding grudges, not a good idea, you know.
Yes, you might accidentally hold a grudge against the love of your life.
Yes. You might miss out on a good friendship.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the grudge.
I mean, it is pretty funny.
I was just impressed with her fortitude. I was like, I mean, I wouldn't go up against this girl.
And
I would not bet against her
than any U.S. Marine to like still hold a grudge against Gilbert Blythe, the cutest boy in school. Are you kidding me? Like,
yes,
I would not have the strength.
So funny.
And I forgot. Is it? Yeah. Anyway, never mind. We won't bring it up. But yeah, that's a good one. What's another one? Oh, I think another sweet one is there are more kindred spirits out there than you think at first glance. And when Anne gets the time to like know people better, she's like, they're a kindred spirit. You know,
it's true. Like a lot of the people that she starts out saying are not kindred spirits, then she ends up kind of just getting thrown together by fate with them and gets to know them. And then she's like, it turns out they were a kindred spirit after all. Yeah. And it's so nice, which is so funny because if she had just not held a grudge against Gilbert, she would have had the exact same experience there. Because
I know.
Because overall, Anne isn't really a grudge holder. I mean, she does kind of hold a grudge against Gilbert and Josie, but like it's weird. Like these adults who are mean to her, she doesn't hold a grudge against any of them, and a lot of them end up like falling just in love with her, and she's all, they're kindred spirits. But for some reason, Gilbert and Josie, she's like unacceptable.
Maybe it's because they're peers, and she like refuses to. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
but yeah, if she had only forgiven Gilbert.
It's okay. It had to happen in its own time.
It's you know what? They're gonna be fine. Those crazy kids.
Those crazy kids. Will be just
stuff that
fine.
Happens to them. Okay, so anyway, so cute. But yeah, there's some really funny hijinks in the second one.
Oh yeah,
I love it. Yeah, but yeah, those are good things we learned. I think
so too.
Don't dye your hair if you are getting your hair dye from a dubious source. Okay, yes. Do your research.
And miscellaneous peddler.
Yeah,
aka wish.com. It's true.
Funniest thing you could have said. And buy her hair dye from wish.com.
Oh God. How do I do it? She did though. I mean, like,
she really did.
Ooh,
Oh
that's
God, that's
rough.
funny.
I dyed my hair green once, just at the tips on purpose.
Me too.
Ooh. I would say Anne would approve, except that I don't think she would because she was mortified by her green hair.
She was. It was absolutely not intentional, though, you know?
No, not at all. Poor
I
thing.
feel like Anne would find some nice way to compliment it, though. She'd be like, oh, it's very much of a dryad thing to do. Like, she'd be like, oh,
Yes,
it's so
exactly.
romantical.
And then because someone else did it and liked it, she would probably be like, now I have to do it too. Because she's very much into following the trends.
She does love, it's so cute. And she's like, it's just so interesting to be into fashion, don't you think, Diane?
It's so cute. She's so pure
cute.
and sweet. Well,
She
what
loves
about
beautiful
favorite
things.
quotes? She does.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. Well, this book is like the most quotable. Like, it is chock full with wonderful quotes. I
Absolutely,
don't
it
even
is.
have the time to like, there's just so many. I could pick almost anything from any page, but
I know.
I have two that I kind of wanted to say. This one I just love. It's just so sweet. Dear old world, Anne murmured, you are very lovely, and I'm glad to be alive in you. It's so sweet.
I know. It's a good one.
And then here's this other one. That one's kind of like all-time fave, but this one, I don't know why, like something was going on with me, I guess, but I was listening to the audiobook and I had totally forgotten about this, but it's just like one of Anne's little musings, you know, like everything she says is like this, but this one made me cry for some reason. I just immediately burst into tears.
Oh,
but she's talking of like, I think spring has just come around and she's talking to Marilla about like how beautiful all the flowers are. And she's talking about Mayflowers and how she feels bad for people who don't have them and how it's like they're the most beautiful flowers. And she says, do you know what I think Mayflowers are, Marilla? I think they must be the souls of the flowers that died last summer, and this is their heaven.
Ah, it's so beautiful.
How sweet is that?
Oh, it's so beautiful. She's just so good at seeing beautiful things. It's crazy.
I know, and it makes me happy.
I know. Like I do wish we all were so much better at seeing beautiful things.
Ugh, made me cry. Anyway,
yeah.
What are yours?
I had like 3 I was gonna pick from, but I ended up picking like a longer one as my favorite one. It's just this is my season thing, and here's a little bit of my pining for fall. The quote is, "It was November, the month of crimson sunsets, parting birds, deep sad hymns of the sea, passionate wind songs in the pines. Anne roamed through the pineland alleys in the park, and as she said, let that great sweeping wind blow the fogs out of her soul." Oh, I love that. That's exactly how I feel. Like when you just stand in like an autumn breeze, you're like, oh, I just feel like completely refreshed. Like all of everything else is just swept out of you in that like autumn wind, and everything is wonderful and beautiful.
Wow.
I definitely never appreciate the world more than in the fall. So
yes.
That whole quote was just, I love it so much.
Lucy is such a good writer. Like she knows how to like, she's so good.
Just evoke the thing, like real life experiences. Yeah.
And she'll just like have these, like, she'll make Anne have these like little lines where you're like, I've never thought of it like that, but I agree.
Yeah, but I agree. Exactly.
What's the one, made me think of this when you're talking about fall, but Anne says something like, I'm so glad we live in a world where there are Octobers.
Yes, that was another one of the ones that I almost picked. Did I keep it? Oh yeah, that's exactly it. I'm so glad I live in a world where there are Octobers. That's it. It's so good
because you're like, obviously, me too.
I'm so like fall ready, but yeah, exactly. She's like, so this is a thing we all experience, but I'm going to show you how beautiful it is that we experience this, and it's so true and nice. And also, it just made me be like, can I have fall now? I'm ready for fall.
Yeah, where is it?
I need my cleansing autumn breeze. I need it now.
To wash the fog out of your soul.
I need it to I need it to like sweep the fog out of me. The gross, like 98-degree humidity fog out of me, please. It's gross. Let's see. Well, I guess all that's left is Pinkies Up. How many Pinkies Up would you give it?
5. A million. 5. A million. 5.
5. A million. No, 5. 5 is fine. I'm gonna give it 4 Pinkies Up.
Oh yeah,
because I really liked it. But I think if it had been a 5, I would have also really liked it on the page. And for some reason, I had a harder time getting into it, even though like this was written like in very modern language. Like that's why I was shocked to find out that it was written in like the very early 1900s. So it read modern, which I enjoyed, but for some reason, I don't know if it's probably part of this is probably just like largely genre preference.
It's not really your genre. Yeah.
It's not really my genre. Cottage-core in general is not really my genre. I want it to be because of those moments of like the beautiful, like transcendent, like nature moments. I love that.
It's really like a coming of age novel, like a slice of life coming of age. And that way it reminds me of like Tree Grows in Brooklyn a little bit.
Yes, it reminds me of that a lot. Exactly. Because it really follows her from like childhood through adolescence, like into new adulthood, and then we leave off and then there's more books. But I think the slice of life genre is just not my genre as much, but there's a lot of other stuff I can appreciate about it. So definitely 4 pinkies up over here. See, what are we reading next week?
We were reading Brooklyn, I believe.
Oh, that's right. By Toyven. I don't know. I used to be good at pronouncing this.
I will look it up.
Yeah, we'll try and have that pronunciation correct for you. But if you guys are like, that sounds familiar. Yes, this is the one with the movie with Saoirse Ronan, right? Yes, I have seen this movie actually.
Great
and
movie.
It was beautiful. So I'm excited to read this. It's going to be a good one. Was this a book rec or was it just...
was a book rec from me.
A book rec from Spoon. So have you read this before?
I have. Yes. I read it for my Irish literature class.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So it's a story of an Irish immigrant to New York, correct? Doesn't she fall in love with an American
Italian guy?
Yeah. It's the two sides of my family colliding.
But Tony is so cute.
I know
he's the best of the Italians.
You're absolutely correct. When I watched the movie, I was like, hang on, do I have feelings for an Italian man? This is not what is happening. This is not supposed to be happening. I am firmly against dating Italians. What?
Yeah, he is so cute. Okay.
He is cute. So it's really good. We're going to do that next week. So if you guys want to read along with us, go check that out or just go read an Anne of Green Gables or listen to the audiobook because this book was thick. I think that's the other thing too, is it felt like hefty and intimidating, but the audiobook was actually pretty short and it went very quickly.
Yeah, it's really,
and I'll say on Chirp, sometimes trying to find a classic on Chirp audiobooks, which is the one I use because it's no subscription. It can be, sometimes you'll find a bunch of different versions for like $2.99 or something, which is awesome. But sometimes those versions are like kind of low quality and I just get them anyways if I don't have time to like read the whole book. So I'll do the audiobook version, even if it's kind of crappy. This one, they have a $2.99 version of this audiobook of Anne of Green Gables that's beautiful. It's beautiful. So definitely worth it.
And also so we didn't really listen to the same one, but also the Rachel McAdams one, you guys, if you can get that one, so good as well. So she did a great job as well.
This is definitely an audiobook book, at least for me. Like I really enjoyed this as an audiobook.
It's nice because it's nice to like hear the fun descriptions and stuff.
I did finish listening to it this morning while I was like pitchforking the hay around the orchard. Which I was like, Kendall would appreciate the description
dedication.
Of this. Yes. However, the reality is so much grosser. But I had my phone playing the audiobook balanced in on a tree branch. Good time.
Aww.
It was good. Yeah. But anyways, if you guys want to keep up with us during the week for more bookish nonsense and bookish adoration, you can do that. We're That Pretentious Book Club on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. Actually have some TikToks, I think, coming out this week that will have some sneak peeks for you guys for some other books that we're doing this season. So that's exciting. Largely thanks to you guys for all of the book recs. So thank you guys again for that. We're doing some book recs later this season, which I am like thrilled about. Like I've already read them and somebody book recced them and I was like, oh my God, thank God. This is going to be so much fun. Some of them were books that were recommended to us by multiple people. So I will try to remember if there were multiple people and give you guys shout outs. But anyways, you guys can keep up with us on social media. If you guys want to send us book recs for next season, or you just want to chat with us about books, you can message us on social media, or you can email us at contact@storysirenstudio.com. That's our production company. You can also go to storysirenstudio.com if you want to see all of our bookish merch. We've got inside jokes, we've got pod merch, we've got book jokes, we've got we don't have our Midsummer Night Dreams merch yet, but my sister is working on it. It's good. So
it's coming.
It's coming. Go check it out.
Can't wait.
It supports the pod, which is fun, and also little independent artists like my sister, which is cool. And now that she's little, she's taller than me, but such is genetics. But was that what a divergence? Anyways, I was going to say something else, and I entertained myself too thoroughly, distracted myself. Oh yes. If you guys want to support the pod another way, you can also go to Patreon/StorySirenStudio.com. That's also where you can see all of our video episodes. We have bonus episodes, bonus content, exclusive merch just for our Patreon supporters. Shout out this last couple weeks, we've gotten like 2 more. Bethany Finger from the Prince Kai fan pod. She signed up for our Patreon, so thank you, Bethany. And my mom also signed up for our Patreon. I was like, thank you, Mom. But she signed up with Poppy, like the flower, because that's her like grandma name. So that's very cute. So thank you guys for joining the Patreon. And if you guys want to see our exclusive content, you guys can go and see that there, including video episodes and all of that good stuff. And if there's anything that you guys want to see us do on Patreon or even on social media or on the pod, reach out and let us know so we can give you guys what you want. And finally, if you guys enjoyed the pod, if you wouldn't mind leaving us a review below, that would be absolutely fantastical. And I think that that's everything I've got for you guys. So until next week, keep your teacups full,
your pinkies high,
and your book club
pretentious.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.